Pessoal, boa noite. Eu peço para vocês se sentarem, por favor, que daqui a pouco a gente já vai começar.
Boa noite a todos. O meu nome é Pedro Carvalho.
Meu nome é Laura Rabelo e somos do time da Brasil Conference at Harvard and MIT 2019. Estamos começando agora o painel Mais Talentos, Desenvolvendo os Líderes do Amanhã. O painel está sendo transmitido ao vivo para pessoas de todo o Brasil e todo o conteúdo será gravado.
Aqui na Brasil Conference, nós estamos acostumados a ouvir histórias inspiradoras de sucesso de muitos líderes do Brasil e do mundo. No entanto, essas trajetórias, por mais inspiradoras que sejam, podem parecer distantes da nossa realidade ou até inalcançáveis para nós, estudantes. Para quebrar esse paradigma, antes do painel principal, teremos uma breve conversa com 2 jovens que estão se tornando líderes em suas áreas. Para começar, gostaria de receber o Gabriel Liguri, CEO e cofundador da Tissue Labs. Motivado por um problema cardíaco na infância, Gabriel chegou a um dos melhores centros de cardiologia do mundo. E graças a ele, hoje, nós temos um brasileiro que quer imprimir o primeiro coração artificial do mundo.
Gostaria de chamar também o Henrique de Bugrat, que aos 16 anos cofundou a Pagar-me. Logo em seguida entrou para Stanford, mas deixou a universidade para ser o co-founder e CEO de uma fintech que hoje é avaliada em mais de $1 bilhão, a Brex.
E, por fim, ninguém melhor para mediar essa conversa do que Florian Bartunek, formado em administração pela PUC-Rio e também tendo participado no programa Harvard YPO. Florian foi sócio do Pactual nos anos 90 e é um expert de longa data no mercado de ações. Hoje é CEO, CIO e sócio fundador da Constellation Investimentos, membro do board da Fundação Estudar, Fundação Lemann e B3, e está aqui para moderar o nosso painel.
Bom painel a todos.
Estão me vendo? Working? Beleza? Ele estava esperando ver o Jorge Paulo. Vou ver a gente. Mas ele está chegando. Surpresa! Não, mas deixa eu primeiro agradecer o Gabriel, que veio do Brasil, chegou hoje, o Henrique, que veio lá do Vale. Esse painel é legal porque, assim, eu estava uma vez com o Jorge Paulo e uns amigos do Jorge Paulo, e alguém perguntou assim para ele: pô, Jorge, como é que você está sempre com tanta energia, tão entusiasmado, otimista com o Brasil? Né? Você está sempre otimista com o Brasil? Ele falou assim: não, porque eu estou sempre cercado de jovens que me dão energia, né? Vejo eles fazendo empresas incríveis, indo para o terceiro setor, para a política, e isso me deixa muito, muito otimista com o Brasil. Eu acho que o Gabriel e o Henrique são 2 exemplos. Eu chamo eles de mini Jorge Paulo, vocês vão entender por quê, já. E eu acho que vocês vão lembrar desse dia, porque quando ele ganhou o Prêmio Nobel de Medicina, eu falei: pô, eu conheci esse cara quando eu era garoto lá na Brasil Conference. E o Henrique, quando for o novo Bezos ou Elon Musk também, vocês vão lembrar. Mas enfim, o que eu acho melhor é começar vocês contando um pouco a história de vocês, que é incrível, e eu queria que você contasse desde a maternidade, que eu acho que a tua história incrível começa na maternidade. Henrique, você desde os 12 anos, se você pudesse... Quem quiser começar, quer começar?
Posso começar. Bom, realmente minha história começa na maternidade. Eu nasci com uma cardiopatia congênita, para quem não está acostumado, familiarizado, é uma má formação cardíaca, né? Que não permitia a oxigenação correta do sangue. E com 7 dias de vida já estava no Instituto do Coração. Instituto do Coração, que é o 3º maior centro cardiovascular do mundo, faz parte da Faculdade de Medicina da USP, e com 7 dias de vida eu estava lá, já para começar um acompanhamento médico. E esse acompanhamento começou nessa fase. Com 2 anos de vida eu fui operado lá no Instituto, e desde então sempre passei em consulta, rotina, participei, a minha infância inteira foi uma boa parte, né, indo e voltando do hospital. E isso acabou me tirando curiosidade pelo ambiente hospitalar, o que era o hospital, e eu acabei tomando gosto, é estranho, né? Mas eu acabei tomando gosto pelo ambiente hospitalar. E queria fazer medicina desde criança, eu não me lembro de falar outra coisa que eu queria fazer. E, de fato, eu consegui entrar na faculdade de medicina lá na USP, né, onde ficou em Cor, e fiz a graduação lá, sempre focado nessa área de cirurgia cardíaca, para tentar... meu objetivo de vida era ser cirurgião cardíaco pediátrico, exatamente para fazer a mesma coisa que fizeram por mim lá quando eu era criança, para outras crianças. E sempre me envolvi, participei de diversos congressos, apresentações, escrevi 2 livros nessa área de cirurgia cardiovascular, enfim. Quando chegou mais para o 5º ano da faculdade, que era o finalzinho, né, comecei a ficar um pouco desapontado com as limitações que a gente tinha em tratar os pacientes, enfim. Hoje a gente tem 300 mil, isso falando não só pediátrico, 300 mil pessoas morrem por ano de doenças cardiovasculares no Brasil, doenças que poderiam ser tratadas se a gente pudesse substituir o órgão, né? Então, a gente hoje, se queima uma lâmpada, a gente troca a lâmpada, né? Por que a gente não troca o órgão? Porque o transplante é um problema ainda, né? A gente tem problema de rejeição e a gente tem problema de doadores. Então, eu comecei a ver que um potencial para a gente solucionar a saúde seria realmente a gente poder criar órgãos em laboratório. E resolvi que, diferentemente de todos os meus colegas que foram para a residência, eu arrisquei e fui fazer o doutorado para estudar essa área de geração de tecidos.
Sem fazer mestrado, foi direto para o doutorado.
Exato, Na medicina, se você tem uma história de pesquisa já durante a graduação, você consegue acessar direto o doutorado. Então, fui fazer o doutorado na Holanda, com o auxílio da Fundação Estudar. E agora, voltando para o Brasil em 2017, tive a oportunidade de encabeçar a criação do laboratório de fabricação de órgãos e tecidos lá do INCOR, que tem o objetivo a longo prazo de estar fazendo órgãos artificiais.
E como é que é essa história de abrir a empresa agora? É em paralelo à medicina? Como é que é?
Em paralelo à minha atuação como pesquisador na academia, eu estou agora com uma empresa, a Tissue Labs, que é uma empresa que pretende exatamente acelerar essa conversão da pesquisa para realmente uma coisa que vá para o mercado e que chegue nas pessoas, né? Não fique só na bancada, não fique só na universidade, que realmente as pessoas tenham acesso ao que a gente está desenvolvendo. Então, a gente está começando, permitindo aos outros pesquisadores acessar os conhecimentos que a gente tem por meio dos produtos que a gente está desenvolvendo, com o objetivo a longo prazo de estar realmente gerando tecidos para comercialização.
Legal. Henrique, 12 anos.
Bom, minha história começa porque eu tinha um jogo que eu queria jogar e era um jogo pago e eu descobri que se eu aprendesse a programar eu conseguia jogar de graça. Então eu ganhei um computador e comecei a aprender meio que sozinho e montei meio que uma versão pirata desse jogo aí, que em vez de cobrar as pessoas para uma mensalidade, a gente cobrava para os itens dentro do jogo. É um modelo que hoje é mais comum nos jogos, mas na época não era tão comum. E eu fiz isso por 2 anos, aprendendo a programar, montando esse servidor, até que a gente recebeu uma notificação falando que eu estava quebrando uma tal de patente. Eu não sabia muito o que era uma patente, mas achamos melhor desligar tudo e partir para outra. E aí, mais ou menos nessa época, eu estava tendo uma crise aos 14 anos de idade, não sabia o que fazer da minha vida. E decidi que eu queria começar a fazer alguma coisa. Eu comecei a assistir um seriado chamado Chuck, que era um cara que era um espião que tinha ido para Stanford e ele era um programador e um hacker muito bom. E eu falei, eu quero ser que nem esse cara. E foi assim que eu decidi ir para Stanford, porque eu, queria ser que nem o Chuck. E aí eu comecei a pesquisar, não entendi muito como funcionava esse negócio de estudar fora. E achei um brasileiro que estava se formando em Stanford, Gabriel, que deve estar em algum lugar. E ele estava se formando, a gente fez um acordo que eu trabalhava na empresa e programava e ele me ensinava o processo de universidade americana. E aí fez isso por um ano, trabalhei lá na empresa por um ano. Depois, decidi que eu queria tentar criar minha própria empresa. A gente começou uma empresa de educação chamada Estudar no Zeu, eu com 2 amigos, que ajudava outros estudantes brasileiros com o processo de seleção de universidade americana. Deu bastante usuário, que era naquela época do Ciências Sem Fronteiras, então tá todo mundo interessado, a gente saiu na mídia bastante, mas dinheiro que é bom não deu muito, não. E aí, mais ou menos nessa época, a gente precisava de um dinheiro e a gente achou um hackathon em Miami que valia $50 mil. Para quem não sabe, hackathon é uma competição de programação, que você fica 24 horas programando alguma coisa. A competição valia $50 mil, a gente foi lá para Miami e a gente montou um app que era tipo um Tinder, mas em vez de ser por em vez de ser por localização, é por amigo de Facebook. Então você podia dar like, dislike lá nos seus amigos do Facebook. E acabou que a gente ganhou o negócio, voltou para o Brasil, tentou lançar e não deu muito certo também. Mas foi mais ou menos assim que eu tive minha primeira experiência de pagamento, que eu tive que implementar um sistema de pagamento, foi um negócio horroroso. E a gente falou, e nessa época eu conheci o Pedro, meu sócio. A gente se conheceu por Twitter, basicamente, o Pedro também programava desde pequeno. E basicamente, quando você é programador, você tem um negócio que é tipo o seu time de futebol, que é seu editor de texto. Então tinha um editor de texto que era tipo Corinthians, que era bom, que era o Vim, e tinha um que era tipo São Paulo, que era ruim, que era o Emacs. E eu era Vim, ele era Emacs, a gente começou a brigar no Twitter, começou a ficar complicado de brigar em 140 caracteres, a gente foi pro Skype. E no Skype, muita porrada, mas aí a gente ficou melhor amigo e decidiu começar uma empresa junto. O Pedro tinha trabalhado numa empresa de pagamento já entendia muito sobre pagamento, eu tinha tido essa experiência negativa com pagamento e, decidimos criar uma empresa. E foi assim que a gente criou a Pagar-me. A gente recebeu o nosso primeiro investimento da Arpex, na época, R$1 milhão, parecia dinheiro infinito. E, a gente fez a empresa, cresceu, até, sei lá, devia ter um pouco mais de 100 pessoas. E a gente passou em Stanford. E no que a gente passou, caramba, a gente vai para Stanford, não vai para Stanford, vai para Stanford, não vai para Stanford. E decidimos ir. Então, vendemos a empresa para a Estônia e fomos para Stanford. E lá em Stanford, a gente achou que ia ficar um pouquinho mais, mas acabou não durando muito. A gente ficou um total de 6 meses aí. E aí, depois de 6 meses, a gente decidiu criar a Brex, que a gente faz cartão de crédito corporativo, e é o que a gente está fazendo até hoje.
Eu estava falando com várias pessoas, eu perguntei assim, porque você tem 23 anos?
23.
23, e a última round da empresa foi avaliada em $1 bilhão. Sim. Aí eu falei assim, mas vale $1 bilhão? Ele falou assim, olha, 1 bilhão não sei, mas 20 vai valer. Esse meu amigo, né?
Gostei desse amigo seu aí.
20 vai valer, né? É teu amigo também, né? E ele me contou uma história de você, como é que você levantou o dinheiro do Max, que eu queria que você contasse que é peculiar, e falasse como é que a Brex vai chegar a valer $20 bilhões.
A gente, tem um cara que a gente admirava ele muito, que ele foi um dos co-founders do PayPal, que, é uma empresa hoje avaliada a $120 bilhões. E a gente falou, como é que a gente conhece esse cara? E aí tinha uma feira de carreiras lá em Stanford, que, era você tentando aplicar para os trabalhos. E aí o que a gente fez? A gente começou a aplicar para a empresa do cara, como se a gente quisesse trabalhar lá. Aí a gente fez tudo e tal, e aí chegou no final do processo, a gente falou, olha, a gente não quer muito trabalhar aqui não, mas a gente queria conhecer você. E aí ele falou, acho que ele na hora não sei se gostou muito, mas depois a gente criou um relacionamento e ele acabou sendo um dos primeiros investidores da Brex.
Legal. E como é que a Brex vai chegar em $20 bilhões e como é que ela é disruptive?
A Brex a gente está tentando ser a nova American Express, né? Então a Amex é um grande player global aí de cartões corporativos. A gente está tentando montar uma versão melhor aí, que a gente consegue dar cartões com um produto muito melhor, limites mais altos, sem precisar dar garantia na física. E o sonho é, qualquer empresa do mundo, pequena ou grande, ter um cartão Brex para pagar suas despesas. Menos legal que imprimir coração, mas...
Então, quando é que a gente vai ter o primeiro coração impresso no Brasil?
A gente está trabalhando para, em 2030, ter pelo menos uma primeira versão de um coração artificial. Então, esse é um deadline que eu coloco para a nossa equipe. Hoje a gente está trabalhando com tecidos simples, né? Então vasos sanguíneos, válvulas, mas o objetivo a longo prazo, aí, 2030, é pelo menos ter um protótipo que a gente consiga aplicar em modelos animais de um coração artificial. É claro que a aplicação clínica humana leva muito mais tempo, porque tem todo um processo, né, de pesquisa, de trials, etc. Mas eu acredito que nos próximos 10 anos a gente vai estar chegando lá.
E eu converso com muitos jovens aqui, eu estava até comentando isso no painel anterior, e assim, muitos que entram aqui na faculdade, eles ficam assustadíssimos, assim, nossa, foi um erro, porque eu não mereço estar aqui, porque eu estou aqui do lado do campeão de matemática da Índia, do campeão de esgrima da Coreia e tal. Eles vêm nas bibliotecas, até às 3 da manhã as pessoas estão estudando, 24 horas por dia a biblioteca, o pessoal estudando, né? Aí, pô, meu pai vai ficar muito chateado, porque, pô, não se esforçou e tal. Então, ficam super assustados. Como é que vocês, e fico com medo, como é que vocês empreenderam, abriram a empresa de vocês, venceram esse medo, e como é que você teve essa ideia de abrir a empresa, e você também, Henrique? E a gente tem pouco tempo, quanto tempo a gente tem ainda? A gente tem 2 minutos. 2 minutos. Mas, e qual a mensagem, então, tem 2 minutos, qual a mensagem para os jovens correr mais risco e fazer maior? O que você acha?
Bom, eu tenho
Desculpa, são várias perguntas.
Eu já estou assustado aqui do lado do
eu também. Não, eu adoro essas conversas, que eu saio inspirado e me acho achando fracassado no final das contas, porque eu podia ter feito muito mais. Né? Eu sou um merda, pô. Fala.
Eu acho que a mensagem, eu sempre levo comigo uma frase do professor Zerbini, né? O professor Zerbini foi o primeiro médico a transplantar um coração no Brasil, um dos primeiros no mundo, e que fundou o INCOR, que é onde eu trabalho hoje, onde eu fui operado, que é nada resiste ao trabalho. Então, sempre estar focado no trabalho, que as coisas vão passar, o que parece difícil, o que vai passar.
Quantas horas você trabalha por dia? Só de curiosidade?
Eu trabalho por dia, umas 14.
Bom. Henrique, uma mensagem para os jovens.
Acho que a mensagem que é um pouco, não sei se todo mundo concorda, mas a mensagem que eu acho que muita gente passa muito tempo se preparando para chegar a algum lugar, para depois ir para outro lugar, para depois outro lugar, para depois fazer o que quer fazer, assim. E a gente sempre achou que o ideal é, se você quer fazer um negócio, vai lá e faz o negócio que você quer fazer. Não precisa passar por 5 camadas até chegar lá. Então, se tem alguma coisa que você quer eventualmente fazer, pula as etapas do meio aí e vai fazer.
Bom, acabou? Pessoal, eles vão estar disponíveis. Aí.
Obrigado.
Quem quiser falar com eles, pode falar. Legal. Desculpa foi rápido, mas...
Boa noite. Dando continuidade ao painel Mais Talentos, eu gostaria de chamar a Larissa Maranhão ao palco. A Larissa é de Alagoas e ela foi presidente da Brasil Conference em 2017, além de ser ex-aluna da Harvard College. Também tenho a honra de convidar ao palco Bill Fitzsimmons, legendário reitor de admissões de Harvard. Bill Fitzsimmons é responsável pelas admissões desde 1972, além de membro da Associação Nacional de Aconselhamento de Admissão em Faculdade e ex-presidente da Comissão sobre o uso de testes padronizados em admissões em graduação.
Here or here?
E agora, um dos momentos mais esperados da conferência, eu tenho a honra, aliás, a imensa honra, de convidar ao palco Jorge Paulo Lemann. Apesar de dispensar apresentações, Jorge Paulo Lemann é um empreendedor brasileiro reconhecido mundialmente e que serve de inspiração para empreendedores, executivos, jovens talentos, todos nós. Além disso, ele também é um grande incentivador da educação como forma de promover a ascensão social e profissional do nosso país.
Jorge Paulo and Dean Fitzsimmons. Once is enough, it's really good. Jorge Paulo and Dean Fitzsimmons, I can't express well enough how much of a privilege it is for all of us to have you here today. It's not on purpose, but sometimes I'm known to just start a panel very abruptly, just jumping right into a dramatic question. But because my mother's watching the live stream from Brazil, and I've gotten in trouble with that before, we need to take a step back and start the following way. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. When we ask about the secret sauce to Harvard's success and to your success, Jorge Paulo, the answer is always that it all comes down to great people. How would each of you define great people? And how has this concept evolved in the past 30 years? If so, how has this?
I'd like to hear from the master first.
Well, I'm a great believer in attracting the best possible people to work together with us. And I have two great partners, and we've been partners for 45 years now, Marcel and Berto. And so they were great people that I found 45 years ago, and we're still together. And we've attracted a lot of other good people. The kind of people that we have attracted have varied during our career. In the beginning, we were interested in financial traders, people who were very good traders, etc., and very fast thinkers, not necessarily long-term thinkers, but very productive on the short term and like that. And as our businesses evolved and they became longer-term businesses and that we are trying to build for the long term, we became much more interested in people who were interested in building something for the long term and not necessarily the trading types that we attracted at the beginning. And more recently, we are now trying to attract people who are more consumer-focused than we were in the past. We were not very consumer-focused. And we're obviously trying to attract people who have the technological know-how which we don't have and know more about artificial intelligence, big data, and things like that. So it's evolved over the time, but the basic principles are basically people who can do very well on their own, people who have proven that they can get something done, people who can work with others, and basically people that are totally ethical. I mean, you can have different types, you can have, but if somebody's not ethical, that doesn't work in a group. So if somebody is not ethical for some reason, you eliminate him immediately, like that. But so we work at it very hard in all our companies, and the top people in our companies are all very involved in recruiting and following who are the guys who are doing very well, who are the top potentials, and like that. I have an advantage over the dean, I think. He picks people, and then they come here, and he can't necessarily fire them. So I can fire them, and I also get a chance to look them over for a while, etc. and he sort of has to pick before actually, well, he looks at them thoroughly, and I know he knows every single detail about everybody who's a candidate here. I'm always surprised how well he knows everybody. But anyway, I get a longer period of time to look at the guy while he's working with us and like that.
And for Harvard?
Well, for Harvard, no, we don't want to fire them. But what we, in fact, want to do is we want to make sure we keep them around, certainly for 4 years. And one of the metrics we use is, after we see what we do with our selection, is to see whether or not we've selected the people who really will be successful. And the truth is that Harvard usually has a 97 or 98% graduation rate for the undergraduates who come here. And it typically would be the highest in the US. And so that's what we're looking for. But I think one of the things that you mentioned really was the value of hard work. And a lot of people, I think, may underrate the value of hard work. They might think that flash and charisma or superficialities might win the day, and about 99% of the time it's going to be hard work. So what we think about when we want to get together the best class in the world, we just admitted 1,950 people just about a week ago. I understand some of the ones we just admitted may be in the audience. Do you care to identify yourselves? I know that. Okay, so. So we're not going to let you leave the room before you say yes. How about that? So, but one of the things we really need to do is, this year we had a record number of people apply to Harvard. We had a little over 43,000. And in order to get great people to come here and graduate in 4 years, we literally travel all over the US. We visit 150 or 160 locations in the US every year. To give you one example, we have one travel group with Georgetown, Penn, Duke, and Stanford. We go to about 120 cities. Another group, Virginia and University of Virginia and Princeton. And then I asked Yale and Wellesley to come with us. We go to another 20 and 25 with them. We do a bunch of others ourselves. So give you an example. So we'll go into Washington, D.C., and we'll have an audience of about anywhere between 1,200 and 1,800 parents and students just in one evening. And we'll tell about our institutions. And then we'll travel on to Maryland, and we'll end up in West Virginia later in the week, 5 locations in 5 days. We also go all around the world every year, including to Brazil every other year. We have a trip we do with the Ivy League, same sort of travel group. And we've had tremendous success in Brazil over the past 10 years. We were getting, single digits in terms of the number, and, sort of maybe 40, 50, 60 people, and maybe 1 or 2 admits 10 or 15 years ago. And now we're getting 5, 6, 7, 8 people admitted every year. We're getting 200, sometimes more than 200 people applying. And part of the reason for that is the fact that we really work hard. We go out and visit schools and try to get people to think about coming to Harvard. He has been enormously generous in terms of providing scholarship money for Brazilian undergraduates. And we started 35 years ago with a great financial aid program where we have no quota on international students, no limit on the amount of money we'd spend on their financial aid. And he's buoyed that up. And so we can go into Brazil, or we can go to Kuala Lumpur or to Beijing, and we can say, look, if you're a hard worker, if you're talented and looking for talents across the board, all kinds of excellences, all kinds of talents, we don't care how rich you are or how poor you are, we will find the money for you to come and have a successful 4 years. And we do a lot of research actually looking at how well people do once they're here. And the news is very good. It's almost everybody graduates, and people, I think, really are quite happy and do well. But we also take a look at what people do and what they were like 10, 20, or 30 years later. And one of the things is that people, change. And we're looking for people who are strong academically, but we're also looking for people who have a variety of other talents. Now, as it turns out, he was a great tennis player. And, not just a great tennis player at Harvard, but a great tennis player at Wimbledon, the Davis Cup, and so on and so forth. So think about this, though, whether it's tennis or whether it's music or whether, it's art, people who have the energy, drive, and commitment to be great at something will often be able, during college, but then after college, throughout their lives, take that energy, drive, and commitment and use that to be successful. And that's one of the markers when we're, there are 40 of us, once we get all these great applicants into the pool, there are 40 of us who make the admissions decisions. I have a fancy title, Dean, but I have only one vote. I have Tom Hamill with me here somewhere today, who is the area person, the person who covers Brazil. There he is. There's a person you want to get to know. But he and I each have a vote. And so when you apply to Harvard electronically now these days, all of your information goes up on a screen in front of 40 people. And this, and this is after it's gone through a session with having 2 or 3 or 4 people maybe, and even including faculty members read the application, then through a subcommittee that does an initial screening, but then finally, all of the ones who have a chance of getting in are discussed, in some cases, an hour or more by the 40 people, and then voted on. So I think the point I'm saying is that there's an enormous amount of hard work that goes into recruiting all around the world, and then an enormous amount of work that goes into selecting people. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people who will be great educators of one another during those 4 years. One of the best things about college, and not just about Harvard, is the education you get from your fellow classmates. I was at a great event last night. It's called Celebration of Scholarships, where a lot of our scholarship donors came and the people they support. And one of the speakers said, and this is something I've heard at Harvard over the years, there are only 2 things you have to do to have a great university. One is get the best faculty in the world, and the other is to get the best students. So that's the idea, that you try to get people who will do all kinds of interesting things, excellences of all kinds, and then, as they say, if you build it, they'll come. And that's really what it is. But it comes back, I think, to a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of people. We have 10,000 alumni around the world who help us recruit and interview even at the local level. Long answer to a short question.
That was great. And what was the single most important thing you learned from the, in terms of process and method of selecting great people? The single most important thing?
I think different people have different style or different speed or like that, so you sort of can't judge everything by the same metrics or like that. And I think in the end, it's people who really want to do something and want to accomplish something. There are some very bright people, but who sort of don't really want to do anything. So the thing we really look for is maybe grit or something like that. People that hang on, and if they don't do well right away, they will try again, and basically are successful in producing results, I think. So that's what we look for.
There's a wonderful, to me, relatively young Harvard grad by the name of Angela Duckworth, and she's called the Grit Lady. And she's written any number of articles and books on the concept of grit, just to sort of emphasize, what you're saying. And we're looking for all kinds of things. I mean, quite honestly, the most common admit at Harvard is, and I hope this is true of all the people we admit, but they're strong academically. They have some other set of things that they've accomplished, and that they really care about, that they have passion about, that they really want to get done. And the other piece that you talked about in your first answer really is character. It's one thing, and they talk about the concept of leadership. And leadership, in English, it's an old word. It's an old Saxon word, actually. And the origin of it, believe it or not, is to go forth and die. Now, what does that mean? It means it's sort of a battle, I suppose, metaphor. But the idea is that you care about something so much that you are willing to commit yourself fully to that. And that's one of the things you look for. So there'll be people every year. We have some great musicians at Harvard, and that's not an accident. So of the 43,000 applicants this year, about 2,500 to 3,000 sent in music CDs and resumes. We sort of took a look at them, and then we passed the best of them on to faculty. And then they came back and they told us on a 1 through 4 scale usually, by instrument and by voice, who were the people in the application pool this year who were the best musicians. Same thing with mathematics. You know, you could go right down the list. So there are a lot of different kinds of people. You hire many different kinds of people for different tasks. So it depends a little bit on what it is you're thinking about, how you might use it. But in the end, you want to make sure you take people who, again, you want them to make their roommates better, to make the people around them better in the classroom, in the extracurricular activities. The people you could work with, I mean, I've been very blessed. I've worked in the admissions office pretty much since 1972, and there are 2 people who have worked in the office longer. And you know, we also have some just out of Harvard first year. You know, it's a very interesting mix of people. But that's the idea, is you want to be able to work with people where the whole becomes more than the sum of its parts. The old SAT word, synergy.
And on that note, we've had the opportunity to listen to Jorge Paulo's story in a few panels. He participated in the book Dream Big as well by Chris Correa. And we know that, like him, you also went to Harvard. You also lived in Kirkland House. So did Mark Zuckerberg. And you were also an exceptional athlete. Him with tennis and you being a goalkeeper of our hockey team. From there, how did you become the most influential person in college admissions in the world? Was that a big dream of yours? What was the trajectory like? If you could share with us briefly.
I wish my mother died last year, just the year before it, almost 97. So I wish she was here to hear you say that. But there are a lot of really great admissions people. I think in the country and around the world. I mean, I've traveled around the world meeting some really impressive admissions people. And one of the things I think, if you're really going to be good at it, you actually really have to care about being, I guess you'd say, a talent scout. You have to really care. If you say you take, in the United States right now and in many countries, inequality is a big issue. You know, we have a lot of people from, my parents did not go to college. I needed massive amounts of financial aid, to attend Harvard. So I know there are, in the United States right now, there are lots of really great people out there who don't have the opportunity to go to great schools. Their odds of, sort of going to college are not great, or going to a place like, Harvard or Yale or Princeton or whatever are not great. But the idea is there's so much talent in the world. And wouldn't it be great if we could figure out a way that we could level the playing field, so we could get, a huge number of talented people from all the different economic classes? The world would be a much better place. So in graduate school, my specialty really was sort of looking at educational institutions and trying to figure out how you could level this playing field. It was kind of and I was going to be a professor. Actually, and I did a lot of research, but yet it's really about what we call the sociology of education. Mm-hmm. In other words, that who gets a chance to graduate from high school, who gets a chance to actually go to college, and so on. And so I had it in my mind. I think it was really important, not just for our country, but every country, to take full advantage of all the great talented people in their country. And that's what we do in admissions. That's what a good admissions person does. You say to the world, work hard no matter where you are, how poor you are, and things will work out for you, whether it's in college or whether it's, say, working for a great company. That's the idea.
And you both turned out to be tremendously successful. And you always speak about the impact that this place had in you. And I wonder, what do you think makes Harvard so special? What do you think makes this place so unique that everyone wants to come here? In other words, to you, if Harvard didn't exist, what would the world be missing out on?
Well, I had a brother go to Yale, and he would tell you that if Harvard didn't exist, the world would be a much better place. And I have a feeling some people from Columbia might say that as well, so who knows. I don't know, I'd like to hear your answer to that. What makes it's almost a different answer for and people who go to all different colleges would have some different answers. What would you say?
Oh, I think they have been at it longer in terms of picking the best students and the best faculty, and I think they really work hard at that. And if you compare a university to a normal business, they probably don't look at the logistics and how things work and how they're structured and like that. But as long as they're picking the best possible students and best possible faculty, they'll do well, like you said. And I think, and Harvard works very hard at that. And I mean, Yale doesn't have, it's probably a very good college, but it doesn't have the wideness that Harvard has. And so I think that.
There is it is interesting. I think one of the things we ask people every year, why would you choose Harvard or whatever, and just to step back from a little bit, because we travel every year with all those other institutions, and I've also traveled with small colleges and with the University of Michigan, for example. I mean, American higher education is just amazing. I mean, it really is, including the small colleges. Every time I hear a presentation from one of them, I say, wow, this would be a great place to go. And I think one of the things we always talk about is fit. What's actually the right fit. One of the things we really are very fortunate here, though, is that you could argue that Boston and Cambridge, we talk about America's college town. We have a very, very close relationship with MIT. Students can take courses at each one. We also, I think, we have a wonderful new president, Larry Bacow, who was the chancellor at MIT and also was the president of Tufts University, which is really about 20 minutes or so from here. And so you will probably see even closer relationships that we're forging with the other colleges and universities in the area. One of the things, and we also have, hospitals, you could argue this is the biotech center of the world in some ways. You could argue that having a lot of high-tech companies around, the synergy of having, and the scale of Harvard is it doesn't work for everybody. There are some people who would really be much happier, say, going off to a small college at this stage. But the scale of it, my life was changed partly because I took courses at the School of Public Health at Harvard while I was an undergraduate and at the Graduate School of Education. So that was a big help to me. And one of the things that he's been able to do is to ramp up entrepreneurship here at Harvard, both in terms of putting together a faculty position that I think is going to be very exciting, but also the fact that, you've given us the ability now to create a whole new set of courses around entrepreneurship. And if you're an undergraduate at Harvard, you can use all the different parts of Harvard. We call it the one Harvard concept. So you can use all the graduate schools, you can use the centers, but again, you have to think about fit. And also just the fact that you would, though, be in an area where there are lots of different people from all kinds of different colleges.
Just adding my 2 cents to that, if I may. I don't know if this was advertised as well as it deserved to be, but throughout this weekend, at the same time the Brazil conference is going on, there is 100 local hubs in Brazil. We received pictures from many of them, and a lot of them is Brasilia, Carmen Lucia's there, and the young people are gathering and discussing and watching the live stream. And Elisa, I don't know if she's here right now, one of our current presidents, was one of the great responsibles for putting that together. And that's another, just one piece of evidence to the impact this school, this conference is having, and it makes our responsibility that much more important.
Well, we hope that some of the young people who are watching in those locations might think about Harvard, excuse me, for their future, but also think of other, American colleges, universities, and coming up to Boston, because there are great opportunities. I've been lucky enough to visit Brazil. My wife was a flight attendant for 34 years, so we traveled to lots of places, and I still believe of all the places I've been, Rio de Janeiro is the most beautiful city in the world. We were talking earlier about, we've both been on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. I've been to Tibet, I've been to lots of places, but Brazil is pretty special.
Let's talk careers a little bit. If you were graduating from school this May, like a lot of people in this room are, what would you do? Where would you go? Where would you work? Or Jorge Paulo?
I did reasonably well copying things that were going on in the U.S. and bringing them to Brazil, and mostly in the financial world. I started a brokerage house and was friends with Goldman Sachs and things like that. And so I would try to do something similar, but I wouldn't pick the financial world anymore. I think it's too crowded. There are a few opportunities in fintech, but it's very crowded. But I think technology is going to be the thing that's really going to drive the world in the coming years, and the technology companies are the ones that are going to grow the fastest. You've seen it in recent years. I mean, Google, Apple, Facebook, and like that are a much bigger percentage of the total market cap of the U.S. market. I think that's going to continue for some time. So I would learn more about tech, make sure I know more about it, and I would go to Brazil, where I still think it's easier to get a business started. It's tougher here, a lot more competition in the U.S., but I would try to pick up something in the tech world which could be adopted to Brazil and get it going there. Pretty much like I did in finance 40, 50 years ago. So.
Makes sense. Where would you go?
Where would I go? Well, it's interesting. When I was I grew up 15 miles from here, and I'd never seen Harvard until I was a senior in high school. And we ran a gas station, a petrol station, in a little small store. Not quite on the scale of business that you've had. And so I went to a Roman Catholic high school. And my Catholic high school now, this is the old days, but the first two teachers I asked to write recommendations for Harvard wouldn't do it. They said, I said, why not? He said, well, Harvard, they said, is a bunch of communists and a bunch of atheists and a bunch of snobs. And if you go there, you'll flunk out. And here was the key element. You'll lose your soul. Wow. So that sounds really interesting, right? So, of course, I came and I visited, and people were actually really nice. And I found out it had the highest graduation rate in the world, and so on and so forth. It was a very different place from, what they had thought it was. And maybe Harvard was like that, 100 years ago. But the one thing I will say is that, the Harvard I went to is very different from the Harvard of today. And the Harvard of today is way, way better than the Harvard you and I attended. And you can do a few metrics, but, in my era, it was 4-to-1 male to female. And it was set at that number. And today it's about 50-50. There were very, very few students of color. And today, this is absolutely not true. The class we just admitted is about 15% African American, 12.5% Latinx, 25% Asian American, and so on and so forth. There were very few people like me from we call first-generation college backgrounds, and now you know, it's 16, 17, 18% of the incoming group, you know, if parents did not go to college. We had no money, really, but there were very few people like me at Harvard in that day. Today, well over half of the students at Harvard are on financial aid, need-based financial aid. International students, there were almost no international students, you know, at Harvard at that point. And 35 years ago, we decided, for a long time, we were the only American university who went out and said, you know, come one, come all, you know, wherever you are in the world. And you know, today there are a few others, maybe 3 or 4 others, American universities that have the same kinds of policies. But now, you know, we're 12 or 13% students with foreign passport only, and another 9% who are U.S. dual citizens, and another couple of percent who are U.S. permanent residents. And of the plain old, 77, 78% of just plain old American passport, like the rest of America, about 20 or 25% of those families have a language other than English spoken in the home. And you could go on. This is a very different institution and a much better institution in so many different ways. And this is true for all the places we travel with as well. So there's been a revolution. I am thrilled to have been a part of the helping to make, along with all kinds of other people, the changes that have been made, opening up higher education. And it's people like him who have, you know, really made it possible for us to do that, to give us the financial aid so that we can go out and make the statement to the world that, you know, we want you to come no matter how rich or how poor you are.
And you know, these students, they come to you all the time to meet and for advice. And from these meetings, what would you say are the things young people care the most about today, if there's a pattern? And what do you think they should care about a little bit more?
You want to give it, you talked about
Well, you know, when I started Financial World, most of the guys who came, they just wanted to make money, and that was the main objective. And as things have come along, most young people now, they want to do well, not necessarily money so much, but they want to do good also. They want to do something that they think is good. And lately we've seen a lot more people, Brazilians especially, wanting to go into public service, which I think is terrific. You know, it's no good if you just have very good businessmen. You have to have very good people in public service. So I think that's a good trend also. And, but basically, people are more interested in doing good and you know, and being an overall person rather than just making money or like that.
Yeah, you know, it's you know, I think one of the little metrics I could give you for the class we just admitted, it goes along with just what you said. The most popular kind of activity that people are thinking about is public service and community service. That's by far the most popular thing for the people we just. Now, the people are interested in all kinds of things. I understand, and you have your Lemann fellowship. I think there may be 2 people here who just got elected to public office. Is that right? If you could stand. And this is one of the metrics we try to judge ourselves on. We are always looking to see, for example, how many Harvard graduates are represented in Congress, for example, and represented in very important civil service jobs of various kinds, not just in Washington, but really around the United States and the states. And so it's, you know, it's one of the many metrics. We really want to turn out people who will be leaders, to use that word, you know, in really everything you can imagine, whether it's the arts and the humanities, or whether it's public service, whether it's business, whether it's higher education. And, you know, people sometimes discover what their passions are going to be when they're in college and they get around other people who have those kinds of values.
And you're talking a lot about the process of, of selecting these students and reading the essays. In your 30 years of experience doing that, is there one essay you will remember forever that really touched you?
Probably the best essay. Now, I hesitate to say this because if I say it, then what might happen is that people will write it down, and then next year we'll get 25,000 essays. But it was on sugarcane.
Oh.
That was her essay. But, your point, though, is that, when you're looking at an application, you're looking at essays, you're looking at teacher reports and counselor reports, you're looking at interviews, you're looking at all the extra things that people send in. And so it's not a simple matter. I would, we get letters of recommendation from all kinds of fancy people every year, famous people and so on. Probably the best letter of recommendation I ever read was from the school janitor, the school custodian at a school, it was a school where they used some of the students and paid them, to clean up the school after hours. And this recommendation was so moving and so touching, and clearly one of the things it's very easy to do, when the weather is good and the sky is fair, it's easy to do things, right? And easy to do things that you don't like to do, things that you believe in and things that are pleasant to do. When you really want to find out what people are like, give them something they don't like to do. Give them something that's tough to do. And as much as I love our Harvard graduates and what they do, I think some of the most heroic people I know are people who never went to college, who are, for example, some of the single parents I used to teach in the Harvard Night School, who are working a full-time job, trying to bring up kids, and sometimes they're working jobs that are really tough. And I frankly, so I think this janitor, talked about what the nature of the work was and how this person just made the job and everybody around him so much better for his attitude and his work ethic. You can't ask people to do any more work than you do. And so sometimes people will live up to the expectations of the people around you. But that was probably the best recommendation I ever read.
Cool. I'm glad you gave the second part to the answer, because I was going to say, I'm sure there's 1,000 essays that are much better than mine, but remembering that is a very impressive way to avoid the question. So.
Well, of course, I grew up, I had grandparents right on the same street, and aunts and uncles and so forth. So sometimes people try to write these very fancy, esoteric, highly academic essays, policy positions, and they always say that the best pieces of writing is to write about things that you know about and something you believe in. And so I think sometimes writing about family members, quite honestly, can be very insightful. I was talking last night to a couple. They have a kid 14, they have twins who are 11, and they just had a baby. And so they said, well, you can't imagine how the older siblings are now, they love this baby. This is the highlight of their lives. And I said, well, I can't tell you how many essays I've read over the years from someone applying to college who talked about what an incredible joy a younger sibling was. So that's a little, again, human dimension is probably better.
And I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit about great people working together, because a lot of times phenomenal people also have very big personalities, and they can, clash. And we have an example of Jorge Paulo's almost now 50-year-old partnership with Marcel and Beto, and it's one that was truly successfully built to last. And in panels like this, it's very common that they ask him about the secret to the success of the partnership. And a very common answer that Jorge Paulo gives is that one thinks, one works, and the other fishes. And then people kind of laugh, like it just happened now. And he sort of gets away with the question. So we really wanted to hear a little bit more from you today, Jorge Paulo. How do you do it? Do things ever get tough? And when that happens, what do you do?
I had a very difficult partner called Berto. His wife is here. She tamed him. And after he had 3 daughters, then he really became tame. No, we just have a great respect for each other. We know that by being together, we have been able to build much more than we would have been able to build by ourselves. We have different characteristics. One is better at this, the other is better at that. And basically, we respect each other very much. And if anybody has a very strong opinion on something, we will respect that. I mean, and if he's better at that than we are or like that, so.
Would you go as far as to say that the partnership comes before what's best for the business?
Before what?
What's best for the business? What's best for the partnership comes before what's best
I don't
for
think so. I think what's best for the businesses. What's best for the businesses? We're trying to maintain our families involved with our businesses, build businesses that last for a long time. But we would never let family matters interfere with the business. The priority is the business, and then the family will do well, and not the other way around. And the same way with the partnership.
And in these 50 years, Marcel and Beto had a tremendous impact on you, which you always talk about, and you on them as well. If they were here with us today, what would they say is the single greatest impact you had on them?
I don't know. I think, I think what we all worked very hard together was what we initially talked about, building great teams, attracting great people, keeping the people interested, giving these people attention. And, it's really been an important factor for us. And we, in our companies, the person who takes care of people is not called human resources or like that. He's the people guy. And it's usually somebody who comes from the operating side and who knows exactly what we need. And he's very involved with the people and knows everybody. And one of them is right there, Claudio Garcia. And he ran the ABI's people program for many years. So we just give a lot of importance. And I think that's the same way we value our partnership. We value the extended partnership and the rest of the people we have attracted to work with us and what they have brought to us and the opportunity we can give them.
Okay. Well, after 5 years of the Brazil conference team, myself included, diligently trying but miserably failing to make this happen, our phenomenal current team was finally able to bring some people to join you in this panel for the very first time, and people who will be able to confirm or deny the answer you just gave us. Pedro, where's our guests?
Right, 2 points.
Oh, I know, we know.
Obrigada. Obrigada por vir.
What's this? It's like a state secret.
Surprised, I didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
Hello.
Marcel, Beto, it's a great honor to have you guys with us today. I also want to say a thank you to the 3 families that made this happen. They've been supporting us for many years now, and they were the ones who really plotted to make this happen. So thank you also to the families. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, we were just talking about how you guys influenced each other and how you've developed together over the past few years. We heard Jorge's response, but I think Marcel and Beto, it'd be good to hear what you guys think as well, is both how you've impacted him.
Can we hear his response first so we adapt?
For sure. But it'd be good to hear how you think you impacted him and then how he impacted you as well.
I think that, of course, I mean, Jorge Paulo for me was always the older, successful brother that I follow. So, but other than that, I think that what impacted me the most was learning to focus on the essential. I mean, that's I'm still practicing, but that's for me was the most powerful impact.
My side, I think there are two things that really change is the long-term view and people empowerment.
I think that makes perfect sense. I have the honor now sitting with 4 really inspirational people.
Well, 3.5.
Dean Fitzsimmons, this is actually a question to you as with regard to, I greatly admire everyone up here, and it'd be good to hear who you admire, who you think has been sort of a role model, if you will, over the past few years.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, there are lots of role models, I have to say. We've had great leadership at Harvard, and so we have been blessed over the years with a series of presidents and deans of the faculty who, frankly, are very inspiring. And they have worked together with the faculty and with our alumni and really with you to make changes at Harvard that are just enormously beneficial. So I wouldn't pick one of them out. You know, we have really been blessed, and one of the reasons I've stayed around as long as I have is because I frankly am inspired by the people I work with, and you know, and I wouldn't do it, frankly. Life is short. You know, you want to do things every day that you believe in. So I think that's the way I'd answer that.
I think that makes perfect sense. And what we're sitting here now with really 4 Harvard alumnus. You have the 2 of you attended Harvard College, and then Beto and Marcel did the OPM program as well. The back door. It'd be great to hear from you, Dean Fitzsimmons, if they were applying now to Harvard College. They're applying for class of 2023, I guess, in August. What would you ask them?
Well, a piece of cake. We'd ask them the same thing that we asked them then. But people will ask us, they'll say, well, you know, there are so many people applying to college today. You know, would I be admitted today? And my theory is that if you rose to the occasion then, you would rise to the occasion now. And just to use your tennis, I mean, I think of him in a way as the Roger Federer of the business world. But when you think about Roger Federer as just last weekend, his 101st victory, and he's a person who stayed with a great work ethic, with great fundamentals, and great discipline. You know, and over a very, very long time, you know, has really had kind of unprecedented success. Now, to become a great tennis player today, you know, requires probably more hours than, say, you put in for your tennis to, you know, be in Wimbledon and, you know, be on the Davis Cup and so forth. But the reality is, if you were growing up today, you would figure out a way, I really believe that, to sort of be as competitive. And I think I think human nature hasn't changed that much. And the value of the work ethic has not changed at all. So I think that's kind of I think the people, you would do what you had to do, I would say.
So, Beto and Marcel, if you were applying to Harvard, what would you say is the biggest selling point? What would you guys try to write your essay about, if you will? Yes.
I think that, quite frankly, when I was on high school and things like that, I didn't have much to sell. Quite frankly, I wasn't very interested and so on. So I would have to knowing myself now, I would say that I'm probably one that when I really fell in love with someone, I mean, I'm relentless. I mean, I fall, I get up, I fall, I get up. I really go for on and on. But I know that now. I didn't know that when I was in high school.
I always had a big will. Then I was driven by my will in realizing things, and I think this is from early on. From early on, I have a lot of will in doing something. Sometimes the wrong thing, but...
I don't know, Josh, what do you think? Would you admit them if you were the Dean of Harvard Admissions?
Would I what?
Would you admit them to Harvard if you were the Dean of Harvard Admissions?
I doubt that I would make it these days, quite frankly. I mean, when I look at the grades that these guys have now and in their exams, it would have been very difficult for me to be admitted now.
But even on the exams, for example, though, so today, no matter where you are in the world, if you're thinking of taking the SATs, you can go on and get free test prep from Khan Academy, you know, and it's test prep that even if you go to a lousy school, no matter where you are, you can, if you want to work hard at the test prep, you can learn. And it's not to trick the test, it's learning, you know, for the SAT, English and math, you know, and learning how to think. It's not a trick, actually. And the same thing with the ACT. So it's very different. A lot of schools now, many schools, certainly in the United States, teach to the tests in a way that they never did as well before. So people have way more, you know, in a sense, they're much more channeled to doing well in those tests. The other thing that's happened, if you're a psychometrician, is that the tests have been inflated. So those big numbers you see out there now, there have been two big test inflations, one in '96 and another one, you know, fairly recently. So don't be terribly impressed by what you see. The tests were taken under entirely different conditions and with an entirely different set of metrics, I would say. And the other thing is just even preparing for college, preparing for applying to college even. The stuff you can get on the internet and the stuff you can get even on our website, and the stuff these books you can buy, it has really helped to level the playing field in lots of different ways. In some ways, it's more competitive, but there's more information about how to get there.
After Josh's response, I was feeling so good about myself, but...
yeah, that's right. Don't get too involved.
I wanted to ask now then, let's assume that you guys were in the Harvard class of 2023. You're thinking about graduation. Would you, right now, if you just graduated from Harvard, be thinking of starting to work in Brazil, in the US? How do you see the different opportunities in the moment for students graduating today?
I've already answered, so ask them.
Look, very different. Depending on the industry that you are going in, you have more opportunities in one place or the other. There are a lot of opportunities in Brazil that independent of Brazil doing well. Then if you are tackling this kind of opportunity, I think Brazil is very good because you have very, very low competition, very different than in the US. It's much easier to operate in the US, much more difficult to operate in Brazil, even for Brazilians. I think much more difficult if you're not Brazilian to understand all the cultural environment and all the difficulties around. Then, depending on the opportunity, both are very good. US, very easy to work. Competition is terrible. Then I think it's not easy to say, let's go to China, let's go to the US, let's go to Brazil. I think the question is what you are going to do there. When you have a big tailwind, like in China, look like that's easier, but that's easier depending on what you are going to do. Then I think before answering about the country, if we need to answer what you are going to do there.
Marcel, anything to add? Or? Perfect. They spent so much time together, they've coordinated all the responses as well. I think that it's very clear that really the four of you have had tremendous impact on various students around the world in different ways. I wanted to ask first the Dean, what is the thing that you would say over your career, not only at Harvard, but over your entire life, that you are proudest to say that you have accomplished?
Well, I don't think anyone accomplishes anything by him or herself. So, but certainly the team that we have. I think the fact that we have changed the composition of Harvard so much over the past 50 years, to the point where I think, just last night when we had 5 students, who made presentations to our big celebration, scholarships, and my goodness gracious, we were saying that the kinds of things that students are able to do now at Harvard, and I know at other colleges as well, not just to take the courses, but travel during school breaks in the summer all around the world with, whether it's business opportunities or social service opportunities or whatever. This wild 24-hour-a-day education, and then what they're getting from their classmates, because their classmates are just amazing, because they really truly come from every possible background. So I think for a lot of us, and not just my colleagues at Harvard, but a lot of us in college admissions believe that we've really helped our nations, and we think we've also helped the world, by bringing together so many talented students who will then give back in every way to their nations, but also to one another across national lines. And I think that's one of the things that we're really excited about our Harvard students these days, is that they really are thinking really about the entire world, not simply about one little piece of the world. So and it's one of the things that great companies do, actually, when you really think about the effect of, Harvard, we have 6,600 undergraduates, but think of the number of people that you have in your companies, and then the number of people directly affected over your lives by your companies, and in all kinds of different nations. I mean, that's a profound effect on the world. If you do that well, you change the world.
And speaking of impact, and I think it's very clear that the three of you have also created significant impact through all your philanthropic projects as well, through Fundação Estudar, each of your own foundations as well. It seems that in the beginning you were focused on creating the most opportunities for people who are like-minded and more in the business world. And now the profile, although there's still a lot of people relevant who want to be involved in business, but the profile of some of the students seems to be a little bit more political as well. We've mentioned that there was great success in the previous election in electing great Líderes from Estudar and the other foundations as well. Can you talk a little bit about what caused that change and how you perceive the impact that you can have in the private sector versus the public sector as well?
Oh, well, we were successful in the private sector, and basically our scholarships and the people we tried to attract for scholarships and like that were oriented towards business. And we thought if Brazil has a very powerful business community and they really do well, this will affect the whole country. And I think some 15 years ago or like that, it became obvious to us that unless we got good people into public service, it wasn't going to happen. I mean, the business guys weren't going to go into the public sector, and so it wasn't going to happen. So we began giving a lot more scholarships to people who were interested in going to public service, or people who wanted to come to the Kennedy School or like that. And so this is sort of going on now. And in our foundations, we have a lot of people who are interested in public service. We've elected a few now recently. And so I think it's and by the way, when we talk about going to public service, we don't care if the guy's from the left or from the right or like that. We just want good people. We believe in people who are good and who are going to do pragmatic things and like that. We don't want any involvement in politics ourselves, but we want to have very good people coming to government and working for government. And so we hope Tabata will be president in 20 years.
And going back to the impact that you've created, if we were to ask you what you're proudest of to the three of you, because we've heard the Dean's response as well, do you think you could pinpoint a specific thing or project, or even if it's just the partnership between the three of you in and of itself, what would you say is the thing that you, looking back now, what was the best decision that you've made that you're proudest of?
No, at the moment, we're not looking that good because one of our companies isn't doing that well. But that's temporary, quite frankly. But overall, I think, what we did, we have this partnership, and we built the world's largest beer company, and we think it's a well-run company and a company that will last for many years. I don't know if you people noticed recently that Jeff Bezos, talking to his people, he said, folks, we have reached 30 years, and most companies don't get to 30 years. And Amazon is now 30 years old, and Amazon's the most powerful company in the world, maybe at the moment. And so we have to be careful that we don't disappear. Someday Amazon is going to disappear. And then he said, yeah, most companies disappear. And then he said, not at my request, he said, it's very funny. The companies which have lasted much more than 30 years are mostly beer companies. So I said, great. So here we are. We hope what we have built will last, 100 years or so. And, we want our families to be involved with these companies, but not necessarily running the companies. And the money which these companies throw off, we're basically investing in more scholarships and more people coming abroad to study, and more people, good people going into public service like that. So that's our dream. A beautiful company that throws off cash that we can spend to improve Brazil overall with better people.
I wanted to give this opportunity to you, Dean Fitzsimmons, as well, if you think there's anything that I haven't asked, or if you'd like to
well, I love his answer, because it really is all about maximizing human potential, and people talk about, human resources. But one of the things I think we all, we all, of course, Harvard's been around a fairly long time, 1636, in one form or another. One of the things we do, though, is that we measure ourselves not just against our peer institutions, but we take a look at all the different kinds of educational and even private sector kinds of organizations to see whether or not we might be able to get ourselves better. We also are trying, even just in our office alone, we take a look at projections, population projections, not just in the United States, but around the world. So when we're going out on our orientation, for our 150 places in the U.S. and all the other stops from all around the world, we're not just thinking about next year, but we're thinking actually about 1 to 2 generations out. And we know, for example, in the United States, that the people who will be running Congress and business and higher education and nonprofits are going to look very different from the people who do it today. There will be, in the U.S., somewhere between 25 and 30% of the country will be Latinx, as we would say. Probably 13, 14, 15% African American, maybe upwards of 10% Asian American. 2 or 3% Native Americans. Just ethnically, the country, just because we know who's been born right now, we know whom we're going to be recruiting in 18 years. So, because they've already been born, it's not a mystery. So we're trying to project ahead so that we do try to stay ahead of trends. And I know this is something that in business all the time, this is Business 101, to understand what people are thinking right now, but also, say, in the beverage business. I have a friend in New England who's in that business, is trying to see, what people's tastes, how they're changing, so it's, you can never, even with our gas station when I was growing up in our little tiny little store, my father always said that and my mother, that in business you're never going to stay the same. You're either going to go backwards or you're going to go forward. And the people who plan ahead and do you said rationality, and pragmatism, along with the best of idealism and the best of planning, that's what's going to win the day, ultimately. You can't just sit there and, like a lump. And it's one of the things that I think all three of you have mentioned is the idea that you want people who are going to do things, people who want to accomplish things. I think you were just talking about people aren't just going to sit back, but they're going to look at all the evidence. They're going to work hard to try to make something great. That's what you want. People who are going to make something great, whatever it is.
Pedro, I know you're the boss here, but am I allowed to ask just one final question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, because, Fundação Estudar and Harvard are all known, they have one thing in common. They're known for liking some really tough questions on the essay or interview, the famous final interview panel at Fundação Estudar. So I just wanted to bring a few questions to them, if that's okay.
Did your mother approve these?
Get ready now.
Jorge Paulo, this one's from a common question from a final panel Fundação Estudar that you like very much. What is a truth that is important to you that most people disagree is a truth? The Peter Thiel question. A truth, a concept that is important to you that most people disagree with you on.
Oh, I think, I value grit, as was described before, as maybe the most important factor of all, whether people really want to go, want to get there, want to dream big, have something like that. And I don't think people realize the importance of that in general. I still think people think, if I study a lot, I'll do well. If I get good grades, you got to go beyond that. You got to want to do something very much and really want it and love it, and that's when things happen. And not necessarily just because you've read a lot of books and like that.
Okay, so grit over credentials, if you will. Dean Fitzsimmons, a question from one of the Harvard essays or Harvard interviews is, tell us about an experience or an event that has changed your perspective on something.
I'll give you a failure. How's that? So I will confess, I was an ice hockey goaltender. I don't know, ice hockey's not big in Brazil, but it's big up here. And so I took it up late, especially in today's terms, in the 8th grade. And then in the 9th grade, I have to confess, I played way too much ice hockey. And I was not in school a lot. And so I did badly. And, so I was at a point where, unless I could play professional hockey, I was really not going to have a job. I would maybe my father would take me on at the gas station. Maybe I'd get a chance to work in the shipyard, which was right down the street. But shipyard, often had a lot of layoffs. It was a tough place to work. And New England winters are tough. So it was a very tough year. And I was able, as a result, to really try to figure out, okay, I don't want to, I guess I could see that I wasn't really going to go anywhere in life. And I suddenly realized how important it was. It goes right back to what you said on grit. And I mentioned Angela Duckworth and her books on articles on grit. And I just said, you know, I've got to make my life happen. So it was a failure, I would say, that convinced me. And I say sometimes, my mother said, if you set low standards, you'll never be unhappy. Well, she actually, think about that for a minute, it's a joke. All right, so the idea is that you've got to go for it. As you said, you've got to set high standards. And even if you don't get there, you've fought the battle. You have, as they say in leadership, you have gone into battle and you've done your best. That's the idea. But the failure is what taught me that.
Thank you. Marcel, this one's from...
Just hope that you don't make my question.
Oh, well, we'll see. Marcel, question asked by Mazola a couple years ago. If you could hypnotize Congress, and by the way, thank you all, Congressmen, so much for being here today, and pass any law, what would it be? And you're not allowed to say Previdência, so not allowed to say Social Security reform.
I think that, first of all, a disclaimer, I don't spend most of my time in Brazil, so okay. I feel a little awkward of giving advice to Congress, even if they are hypnotizing. What I would like to see most in Congress is less parties and parties more aggregated by ideas. So like in most countries in the world. So.
Okay. Now perhaps one of the most famous questions from the panel. Beto, based on, on this panel, who would you fire?
That's what he always asks in our, as we interview.
And the answer cannot be Larissa.
Then he asked them, who would you fire?
You don't have to answer that.
That's funny.
I'll fire myself because I already have another job in building something new.
Well, I just want to say on behalf of
they don't know what to answer,
I wanted to ask now, Jorge, as the final question to wrap up. Would you take them into Fundação Estudar after those answers?
Oh, yeah, sure. They have a gleam in their eyes, and they want to get there, so certainly.
I've always heard that Jorge was the nice one. I think we see that in his decision today. I wanted to say now, truly on behalf of the entire Brazil Conference team, to thank the four of you for being here. Dean Fitzsimmons, thank you so much for your time and the effort that you spend in ensuring that Harvard University receives such a diverse and well-prepared group of students that has defined not only my experience, but the experience of so many of the members on our team. So thank you so much for everything.
And we also hope we get more Brazilians in the future. Undergraduate. Thank you again.
I just want to say also, of course, we have three other wonderful people to thank you. First, Jorge Paulo, thank you for everything you have done, not only this year, but in all the years of the support that you have given the Brazil Conference, the mentorship that you have provided for our team, and everything that you do for students in Brazil as well. So thank you very much for that as well, Jorge.
Thank you.
Marcel and Beto, thank you so much for the surprise. Thank you so much for coming today, all the work that you guys have done as well in improving the education in Brazil. And thank you to the trio again for creating such efficient companies and more importantly for creating so many opportunities for students like myself to continue improving. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, gentlemen.